And now we're going to get started with our honorees. Game Changer West Awards are given to those who inspire, enlighten, and show true and transformative leadership in areas that reflect Asia Society's core pillars. To introduce our first Asia Game Changer West honoree tonight, you may have seen him on Hawaii Five-0, Lost, or other stereotype-breaking roles. Actually, in a past life, one of my jobs was tracking diversity at ABC Television Network, and we were so proud of Daniel for his role on Lost at the time. And now he's one of President Biden's AAPI advisory group members. He's been paving the way for all of us for a very long time. Please welcome Daniel Dae Kim.
Hi, everybody. Thank you to everyone for attending tonight, and I want to say a special thanks to the Asia Society for having me and hosting this beautiful event. Thank you, Asia Society. I want to say that I haven't been to San Francisco in a really long time, but I have a lot of friends here, and so when I got here, I wasted no time in getting together with them, walking around the city, into different neighborhoods, and having really incredible meals, kind of like the one you're all having right now. And I was really reminded of how extraordinary San Francisco truly is. Its storied history, the diversity of its population, the exceptional food, even there's a song that even honors this place. And I don't know what generation you guys all are, but there's a song by Journey called Lights, and it opens with, well, I'm not going to sing it. I'm not going to subject it to my singing, but I will say the first line is, when the lights go down in the city and the sun shines and the moon shines on the bay. I think of that song every time I come to San Francisco, and it reminds me of how great this place really is. It is a special place, but as special as it is, I don't think I need to tell anyone in this room what the challenges here have been over the past several years. In fact, San Francisco has been a microcosm of the challenges our entire country has been facing. We all watch the news. We read social media. We hear the stories from our aunties and our uncles, our family and our friends about everything that's been going on. And we know that though the news cycle may have moved on, that the hurt and the pain and the fear that our community is experiencing is very real and continues, sadly, unabated. But that's why it's so important that we honor those who have represented our community, who have done so with pride and love and respect, people who have fought back and dedicated themselves to making sure that our community is seen and heard. Someone who's not a Johnny-come-lately to AAPI issues, but as a good friend of mine likes to say, someone who's doing the work. One of those people is our honoree, Russell Jeung. Now, you're about to see a very beautifully produced video about Russell, so I'm not going to spend too much time bragging about him right now. But I will say is that he's someone who embodies this notion of doing the work, educating, writing, advocating, speaking out, leading, and he's been doing it for decades. He's the kind of leader our community has needed from the arrival of our first immigrants to today, especially today. And simply put, we need more people like him. People upon whom we can rely, look to for leadership, for information, and for fellowship. People who think globally and act locally, and who dedicate themselves to making sure that we are heard and respected even when it feels like no one is listening. Somebody better get that. Well, we are listening, Russell. We see you, and we are inspired by you. So I'm sure I speak for the entire Asia Society when I say it's a pleasure to celebrate you tonight. Thank you for doing the work. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Dr. Russell Jeung.
Wow. Well, I'd really like to thank the Asia Society for this honor, for Daniel and for Margaret for organizing this event, and just congratulations to the Asian Society for this gala coming out of the pandemic. I also like to acknowledge Gitanjali Rao, the other game changer, and Professor Xiao Zishi, too, for their game-changing efforts. I also want to point out my mom, who's probably eating salad now. She's 95 years old, and she's joined us. Along with my wife, Joanne, my son, Matthew. I have childhood friends in the audience, Michael and Patty. Michelle Tai I knew in high school as well. So I'm seeing all these great old friends, and so this is a really enjoyable event for me. I have to share my Daniel Dae Kim story, and I hope he doesn't get too upset. When we created Stop API Hate in spring 2020, early on, we would get news coverage, and I would get calls from other Asian American leaders and activists because I was so poor on the media. Because I was new to this, I couldn't look directly into the camera. I still can't. I'd be shifty-eyed. I'd mumble. And so Asian American leaders were sort of disappointed about how I was representing the community. And they actually called me and took the time to call me and say, and these were like Hollywood producers, and they were saying things like, Russell, you got to learn to look at the camera. And I'm saying, yeah, I can't. And they go, Russell, you have to emote. You need to, modulate your tone. I go, I can't. And then they finally said, Russell, you have to be like Daniel Dae Kim. You need to emote. And I laughed it off, but if I had cheekbones like Daniel Dae Kim, then I could emote, but Daniel's been a great leader as well in this movement to stop API hate. Very early on, he joined the efforts. I remember in Oakland when our elders were being attacked, Daniel Dae Kim stood up, and now he's our representative at the White House in the AAPI Commission. So thank you, Daniel, for your leadership. So on behalf of Stop API Hate and the co-founders, Cynthia Che and Manju Kulkarni, I'd like to thank you for this award. But this Game Changer Award really, I think, goes to the broader AAPI community. As I've been working with Stop API Hate, I've seen Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders from all walks of life really stand up. We have middle schoolers in the audience who've held rallies for 1,200 people in Berkeley. We've had data scientists, we've had marketing engineers all rise up. And so really this Game Changer Award is a tribute to the community now in this surge of racism. You saw the little video about Steph Curry, and you know how he's a game changer, that because of his three-point shooting, they're changing the rules of the game of how they call fouls on screens, right? I think much of America's game, especially its rules around race, do need to be changed if we're going to talk about game changing. Narratives of who belongs to the United States versus who's a foreigner, who's to be excluded, who's to be targeted, who's to be scapegoated, those narratives need to be rewritten. Interpersonal norms in America about people getting harassed, of people getting mistreated, of facing civil rights violations, those norms have to become abnormal. And the politicians and the policies that scapegoat and exclude us, I was just talking to Dr. Wong about the China Initiative, these policies cannot be voted in. Stop API Hate is a movement that aims to change the rules of the game so that it is more inclusive, so that it is more compassionate, so that it is more just. We know that if we change policies and the rules of the game, then the interpersonal norms follow. So let me give you a couple of examples. In 1882, Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act. You would think that would quell and satisfy the American public. But just a few years later, over 200 Chinese settlements along the West Coast were actually forcibly driven out by mob violence. That policy didn't quell the violence, but actually legitimated the violence. It justified the violence. My own family, we settled in Monterey in the 1860s. A fire burned down the entire village of 200 people. And as a result, my great-grandparents had to move to San Francisco Chinatown as the only place of refuge. So policies shape behavior. In contrast, in 1964, when the Civil Rights Act was passed, most of the people, only about 51% of the population actually favored it. And when polled, 18% of white people said that they had a black friend, only 18%. But with the passage of that legislation, over time, 3 decades later, 86% of whites said they had a black friend, and 87% of blacks said they had a white friend. Our policies, our rules of the game, if made fair, can change how we treat each other, can embody and signal for our community how we want to be as a society. That's why we at Stop API Hate are working with the California API Legislative Caucus to introduce the No Place for Hate agenda, a policy agenda to change the game. In our data, the great majority of the incidents are issues of harassment, microaggressions. They're not hate crimes. So if we want to address the breadth of racism, we have to get at this harassment. 2/3 of those who report to us are women. And so you know the fear that Asian American women are facing now. My mom, she's 95 years old. She lived in the same neighborhood as Visha Ratnapaki, where he was killed. My mom used to be able to go everywhere in San Francisco. But when I asked her about Visha's passing, she said, I guess I would only go to Clement Street, the Chinese area. That's de facto segregation. We're experiencing trauma that leads us to avoid places, that leads us to be segregated. My daughters, when they rode the bus, they would get ready to be catcalled. My wife, when she takes BART, stands back on the subway track. Women, especially Asian women, live in fear of this catcalling and this harassment because it's the norm. But it shouldn't be. So I'd like to acknowledge Senator Min when he arrives, he's on the plane. But he's one of our co-authors for the No Place for Hate agenda. He's authoring a bill for public transit. 8% of our incidents occur on public transit because that's when people are in close proximity and people are getting triggered by Asians. This legislation would have public transit agencies like BART, like Muni, do data-driven policies, initiatives to ensure rider safety. Currently, it's just rider safety in terms of avoiding physical accidents, but we want to ensure that all riders are free from fear throughout their ridership. Overall, we want to change the game by addressing racism as a public health issue. And this is pretty innovative. Street harassment traumatizes its victims. It clearly harms all of us. And if we take a public health approach, rather than like a penal code approach, we're not trying to punish perpetrators. Instead, what we want to do is define harassment in the public health code. We want to educate our communities using 3 state agencies and thereby change the norms of the game. Through our policy innovations, we want to change how women, especially women of color, and other vulnerable groups are treated and respected. So this is really in a line with Asia Society's mission to build a bridge. So I just want to thank you for joining the Asia Society today. I've attended many Asia Society panels and sessions, and it's just a great organization fostering the type of respect, the type of mutual understanding, the type of compassion and dignity that we want to extend to everyone. Thank you very much.